Welcome to your personalized deep dive. Today, we're tackling something, well, a question a lot of you have, how to boost your English vocabulary and really improve your comprehension too,
Mm.
especially, if you're thinking about taking the IELTS exam.
And we've got a really unique approach to kind of unpack here. It all starts with this book, 100 Run,
Yeah.
which basically translates to memorize 7,000 IELTS words with 100 sentences.
Okay.
The title, it might seem like a pretty bold claim, right? But it's all rooted in this really fascinating story.
Yeah, that's what caught my eye too. Like before we even get into the how-to, I'm curious about the author himself, Yumin Hong. He's not just like some random language guru, right?
No, not at all. Yumin Hong is actually the founder of New Oriental. It's this giant in the Chinese education world.
Okay.
But what's really relevant to our deep dive today is his own personal English learning journey. So he actually bombed his first English exam. I mean, scored a dismal 33.
Yeah.
But on his third attempt, he completely aced it. Scored over 90.
Wow.
And his secret weapon, relentless translation and retranslation of 300 key sentences.
So this 100 sentences method in the book that we're looking at today, it's basically like a refined version of what he used to like conquer English.
You got it. And it cleverly tackles like several language hurdles all at once, right? Instead of just memorizing words in isolation, you're working with full sentences, which means you're tackling vocabulary, grammar, and comprehending the meaning and context all at the same time.
It makes a lot of sense, but I'm kind of picturing, someone with like a stack of dictionaries like sweating over every single phrase.
Right.
So how does this active learning actually like play out? Like what's that process look like?
Yeah. It's more like a mental workout, right, than brute force memorization. So let's say you have, one of the 100 sentences from the book. First, you carefully translate it, right, from English into your native language. And that forces you to really think deeply about the meaning of each word and how they all fit together, grammatically. Then you translate it back into English from your native language version. And the goal is to perfectly match the original.
So you're essentially training your brain to think in English, right?
Yeah.
Like building those mental pathways.
Precisely. And by going through this back and forth translation process, you're not passively reading or listening, right? You're actively engaging with the language, which, is proven to help you internalize the vocabulary and the grammar much more effectively.
Okay, I'm seeing the potential here. But let's bring this back to, our listeners' goal, the IELTS exam.
Yeah.
So how does this book specifically help someone prep for that?
Well, the 100 sentences, they weren't just randomly chosen. They're actually pulled from actual IELTS exams. And this ensures that the vocabulary and themes that you're practicing with are directly relevant to what you'll encounter on test day.
So it's like laser-focused IELTS prep, but with the added bonus of building these like broader English skills.
Exactly. And each sentence actually unlocks a web of about 70 related words. So the book explores their definitions, synonyms, antonyms, how they're used in different situations. And it also dives into the grammar of each sentence, highlighting common IELTS pitfalls, patterns, things like that.
That's brilliant. Like you're not just memorizing lists, you're learning words in context.
Yeah.
And you're seeing how they function, like in real world examples from the exam itself.
Yeah, right. And let's not forget about the psychological benefits, right?
Yeah.
This active translation method, it taps into something called active recall. So your brain, it has to work harder to actually retrieve the information, right?
Yeah.
Which makes it much more likely to stick long term.
I love that we're connecting this to like how our brains actually learn best. It's not just about cramming. It's about like making those connections that really solidify the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But can we see this in action? I'm itching to get into like some examples.
Of course. The proof is in the practice. Let's take a look at sentence 39. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's packed with interesting vocabulary and imagery.
Okay, lay it on me. What does sentence 39 say?
All right, get ready. It says, within the span of several centuries, the Lapita stretched the boundaries of their world from the jungle-clad volcanoes of Papua New Guinea to the loneliest coral outliers of Tonga.
Wow, that's quite the journey packed into one sentence. I can already see how this one example could like open up a world of vocabulary for someone. And the imagery it's incredible. You can practically picture it.
Exactly. This sentence is a perfect example of how this method goes beyond just, dry definitions. You're connecting words to vivid images and historical events, which makes the learning process, much more engaging.
But how would someone tackle this sentence? Using the 100 sentences method, where would they even begin?
Yeah. Let's break down the translation process, step by step. And I think you'll see how this seemingly daunting task actually becomes pretty manageable. So the first step is simply to understand like the overall meaning of the sentence in your native language.
So before you even worry about like individual words,
Yeah.
you want to grasp like the big picture of what's being said. Okay, that makes sense. It gives you like a framework to hang the vocabulary on.
Right. Then we can start thinking about like individual words and phrases. Take, for example, jungle-clad volcanoes. How would we translate that, accurately, capturing both the literal meaning and the imagery that it evokes?
Yeah, that phrase jumps out at me too. It's so descriptive. It instantly paints a picture in your mind.
And that's the power of this method. It's not just about memorizing definitions. It's about, forging these connections between words and mental images. So jungle-clad could be translated directly, right? Or we could use a synonym like covered in dense rainforest. And then volcanoes, that's pretty straightforward. But we could explore related vocabulary, right? Like eruptions, lava, or magma.
It's like each word is a doorway to a whole network of related words and concepts. And the more connections you make, like the more firmly those words get like planted in your memory.
Exactly. And that's just scratching the surface of one phrase in this sentence. We haven't even touched on those loneliest coral outliers. It sounds almost poetic, doesn't it?
It does. And I'm already thinking, okay, what are outliers? Like, how does that word fit into the context of like coral formations? It sparks your curiosity and it makes you want to dig deeper.
Precisely. So outliers, it refers to something that's situated away from a main group. And in this case, it's describing these remote coral formations. Again, this sparks a visual in our minds, helping us to remember the word and its meaning.
So by breaking down this single sentence, we've already stumbled upon some really rich vocabulary. Jungle-clad, volcanoes, coral outliers. These aren't words you hear every day. I can see these popping up on the IELTS, but they're also like great additions to anyone's vocabulary, I think.
Absolutely. And that's the beauty of this method, right? You're exposed to a much higher level of vocabulary than you might encounter, through just casual reading. And by actively translating and retranslating, you're not just recognizing these words, you're learning to use them correctly in a sentence.
I'm starting to see how this method could be a game changer, like, for someone studying for the IELTS.
Yeah.
But even beyond the exam, like, imagine being able to weave these kinds of words into your everyday conversations or use them to understand complex texts more easily.
Exactly. It's not just about passing a test. It's about gaining a deeper understanding of the language and feeling confident expressing yourself. And what's really exciting is that, we've only just begun to explore the potential of this sentence, let alone the other 99 in the book.
That's a great point. We've only just dipped our toes into this method, and I'm already seeing the possibilities. So what happens next? Like, how do we take this from a single sentence to like mastering the whole system?
That's where Yu Min Hong's personal journey comes back into play. He didn't just translate those 300 sentences once and call it a day. He repeated the process over and over again, and that's where things get really interesting.
All right, I'm hooked. Tell me more about Yu Min Hong's experience and how it all ties together with this method. Like, what did he learn from all that repetition?
Yeah, that's what we'll delve into next. Let's shift gears and explore the power of repetition and how it can truly transform your language learning journey.
All right, we've seen how one sentence, can unlock a wealth of vocabulary and grammatical insights. But I'm curious about the power of repetition in all of this. So Yu Min Hong didn't just translate those 300 sentences once. Right.
Exactly. He actually dedicated himself to translating 50 sentences every single day, completing the whole set in 6 days. And then the following week, he'd just repeat the process, noticing his progress, of course, but also some intriguing patterns.
That's serious dedication. What kind of patterns did he observe?
Well, he realized that he kept making, the same mistakes in certain areas, like, plural forms, articles, prepositions, those tricky little things that can trip you up in English. And this really highlighted like his weaknesses, and showed him exactly where to focus his efforts.
So it sounds like he stumbled upon a really valuable feedback loop built right into the learning process.
He did. He would compare his retranslated sentences to the originals, like, really pinpointing those weaknesses. And he said over 90% of his errors he figured out on his own just through this careful analysis. And then for the remaining 10%, he actually sought guidance from his teacher.
That's amazing. It's like having a personalized tutor, highlighting all your blind spots. But I'm curious, did he always struggle with the same things? Or were there like things he got right once but then messed up later?
Yeah, you're hitting on a key point here. Yumin Hong, he noticed that sometimes, he'd get something right on the first try, purely by chance, but then he would get it wrong on the second attempt. And this revealed that he hadn't truly grasped the concept. He'd just gotten lucky initially.
Oh, that's so insightful.
Yeah.
It's easy to think you've understood something right when you get it right once.
Yeah.
But repetition really tests whether you've, really internalized the knowledge or just, stumbled upon the correct answer.
Exactly. And that's where the power of repetition really shines. It reinforces what you've learned, right? And exposes those areas where your understanding is maybe a little bit shaky.
This reminds me of the concept of spaced repetition, which is, all about reviewing information at this increasingly spaced intervals. It's a really powerful technique for embedding knowledge in your long-term memory.
Absolutely. And Yumin Hong was essentially using spaced repetition without even realizing it by repeating that translation process, week after week. He was strengthening his memory and ensuring that the vocabulary and the grammar really stuck.
And the book that we're discussing today, 100 Show, it encourages a similar approach by having you revisit those 100 sentences and their associated vocabulary multiple times.
Yeah, it's this brilliant combination of techniques. It's not just about, cramming those new words. It's about weaving them into your long-term memory through repeated exposure and practice.
It makes you wonder if there's something special about these 100 sentences themselves. Like, I mean, what sets them apart from any other, random collection of sentences?
Well, remember that the sentences were specifically chosen from actual IELTS exams, so they're densely packed with the vocabulary and grammar that test takers need to succeed.
So it's not just about the quantity of words; it's about their relevance to the specific goal of acing the IELTS.
Right, but they also offer this really diverse range of sentence structures, lengths, complexities.
Yeah.
Which exposes learners to all these different ways that English can be used.
So by mastering these 100 sentences, you're essentially like training your brain to decode and understand like the kinds of sentences that you'll encounter on the IELTS exam.
You're honing those skills, to quickly analyze those complex sentences, to identify that key information, and to grasp like those subtle nuances of meaning, all of which are crucial for success on the IELTS.
And these are skills that extend far beyond the exam itself, right?
Yeah.
Like think about reading academic articles or understanding news reports or even just having, more nuanced conversations in English.
Absolutely. It's about laying a foundation for confident and fluent English communication in any situation.
So let's say a learner, diligently works through these 100 sentences using that translation and retranslation method, incorporating spaced repetition. What's the ultimate goal? What does mastery look like?
Ideally, they should be able to take the Chinese translations of those 100 sentences and flawlessly reconstruct the English versions, word for word.
That sounds like a pretty ambitious goal.
It is challenging, no doubt about it. But according to Yumin Hong, achieving that level of mastery signifies, this really strong command of vocabulary, sentence structure, and reading comprehension. It demonstrates a deep understanding of how English works.
That makes sense. It's not just about, recognizing words in isolation. It's about being able to use them correctly in context to build those sentences from the ground up. It's like taking all those puzzle pieces and seeing how they fit together to create this complete picture.
Precisely. And remember, it's not about speed here. It's about taking the time to fully engage with each sentence, to understand those nuances of meaning and to solidify that knowledge through repetition.
This approach reminds me of the saying, work smarter, not harder. You're focusing your efforts on mastering this smaller set of, like, high-yield material, which ultimately leads to a much deeper understanding than simply consuming vast amounts of random content.
Exactly. And keep in mind that language learning is a continuous journey. These 100 sentences, they provide a powerful starting point, a foundation to build upon.
So it's not like you reach the end of those 100 sentences and you're done. It's about taking those skills and applying them to new material, constantly expanding your vocabulary and refining your understanding of the language.
It's about opening yourself up to a lifetime of language learning and exploration.
Now, speaking of exploration, we've focused a lot on the method itself, but I'm itching to dive into, some of those 100 sentences and uncover the linguistic treasures they hold. What do you say we shift gears and explore some specific examples?
I'm all for that. Let's see what gems we can unearth from this collection of sentences.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground with the 100 sentences method itself, but I'm eager to see it in action. So we actually have several of those 100 sentences from the book in our source material today, right?
We do, yeah. They span a pretty fascinating range of topics. What catches your eye?
Sentence 7 really intrigued me. It connects art museums with social dynamics. It says, the displays of art museums serve as a warning of what critical practices can emerge when spontaneous criticism is suppressed.
Oh, that's a great choice. Even before translating, you can kind of see how it could spark a whole vocabulary exploration around criticism.
Right.
Words like analysis, interpretation, evaluation, even censorship, given the context.
And on the art side, we've got displays, exhibitions, curation, maybe even artifacts or masterpieces. It's like each word is a thread you can pull to unravel this whole web of related vocabulary.
Yeah, plus the sentence structure itself is a learning opportunity, right? That what clause acting as the object of a preposition. That's pretty common in complex English writing. So, understanding these patterns is just as valuable as knowing individual words.
Okay, I've got another one. Sentence 19 grabbed my attention because, well, climate change is on everyone's minds these days. And this sentence says, we tend to think of climate as opposed to weather as something unchanging, yet humanity has been at the mercy of climate change for its entire existence.
Oh, such a timely choice. And it's a perfect launching pad for learning vocabulary related to climate change, right? Greenhouse gases, carbon footprint, sustainability, renewable energy, even words like mitigation and adaptation.
And it cleverly highlights that crucial difference between weather, which is what we experience day to day, and climate, which refers to these long-term patterns and trends. That's a distinction that's often lost in casual conversation.
Yeah, what I find really fascinating about that sentence is how it reminds us that, climate change is not a new phenomenon. Humans have been grappling with it for millennia, and understanding that historical context can be crucial for making informed decisions about the future.
It's amazing how much depth and complexity we've uncovered just by looking at 3 sentences out of 100. It really highlights the potential of this method.
And that's what we hoped you'd take away from this deep dive. We've only scratched the surface here, but hopefully it's given you a sense of how powerful the 100 sentences method can be for language learning.
It's clear that this approach offers this really unique path to mastery. Whether you're prepping for the IELTS or simply want to elevate your overall English fluency.
It's about finding those linguistic keys that unlock a treasure chest of knowledge and understanding.
So to our listener, we encourage you to embrace this method, explore those 100 sentences, and really challenge yourself. Until next time, happy diving.